Let us pray. Almighty God, we have called us to govern this province. We ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and will promote the interests of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikelela ilezwe letu nabantu balu. Umusele ukulungu pipondu letu. Nkosi sikelela i Afrika. Gina abantuano bayo. Kokela inkokeli zayo. Inike ikolo i Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. You may be seated. Order. I see the Chief Whip.
That notwithstanding Rule 198, precedence be given to the subject for discussion.
Take it there's no objection to that motion. We will then move on to the subject for discussion in the name of the Honourable Wenger. First speaker, Honourable Wenger. I see the Honourable Wenger.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Today we are debating the 2017 State of Urban Safety in South African Cities report, which is drafted by the Urban Safety Reference Group. The report raises some serious concerns about safety nationally, but the report is also relevant to the Western Cape and in particular the urban hub of Cape Town. Cape Town has a population that is growing and it has the lowest level of poverty and the lowest income inequality according to the report. Read the report, Honourable Member, and the second lowest youth unemployment rate of all the cities that were measured. And yet, Cape Town has extremely high levels of crime. The murder rate has increased by 40% in the last 5 years.
Order.
Why?
Order.
Why? The answer might lie, according to the report, in the disproportionate access to alcohol, drugs, and guns, which is double that of any other city. It in turn means that access to drugs, and guns in particular, should be the focus of our crime reduction strategies. The academics tell us that the easy access to guns in crime hotspots considerably contributes to the likelihood of crime, as the presence of a gun may lead to an increased possibility of violent behavior. Philippi East was used as a case study where 1 in 10 people said they carry a gun for self-protection. Even neighbourhood watch members fear for their lives when they're on patrol, as it's a case of batons against guns. One of the study's participants said, quote, "There are guns all over our township. For every 3 people you meet, one of them has an illegal gun with him." Here, more people than in Hillbrow say that they or a member of their household had been a victim of crime in the previous year. Almost 2/3 of those interviewed had been personally affected by robberies. Philippi East is actually our murder capital. While Nyanga might have the highest number of murders in terms of total cases, Speaker, we must also look at the number of murders in proportion to the population. A larger population may be expected to record higher murder rates. So if we look at the number of murders in relation to the population, we have a real problem in Philippi East. Using the report's comparison, Philippi East murder rate in 2015 was 217 murders for 100,000 of the population, compared with Hillbrow's 74. The sad reality is that we do have the tools that we need to detect and prosecute guns that are killing communities and creating webs of fear. When the Standing Committee visited the Forensic Science Laboratory a few weeks ago, we saw a world-class ballistics section. They have firearm and tool mark examination and identification and do a lot of research for firearms and ammunition technology. We saw how a single weapon had been linked to a network of serious crimes. So why then has the individual using this weapon not been arrested? Well, Deputy Speaker, the problem lies in the fact that the technology that we have is not being used, or not properly used and not managed. Station-level detectives are not working across police boundaries, and they are not looking at a holistic picture and finding clues at each crime scene to link weapons and DNA at each scene to look at the broader picture and catch the culprits. A case is often investigated in isolation by detectives that are woefully overburdened. This is why we need specialized units that can operate across boundaries and which understand gang networks and modus operandi. Let us use this good technology that we have. Speaker, Cape Town has the highest rate of crime detected through police action, which is largely as a result of the rise in drug-related crime. Over the last 5 years, the number of drug-related crimes has increased by 22% from 76,000 to 93,000. It means that police are actively looking for drugs. As the indicator suggests, numbers for this type of crime are driven by police action. This is good, you might say, and to some extent it is, but it could be much, much better. Let's look at the data. 72% of the huge volume of drug cases analyzed are for cases of less than 1 gram of substance. If we look at the difference between possession and dealing cases, we see that the overall number of cases analyzed in the last 4 years, it's for drug possession, not dealing. Possession cases being sent for analysis increased dramatically from approximately 66,500 in 2013 to 82,500 in 2016. But if we look at the number of dealing cases in the same time frame, the number of cases increased from approximately 9,200 to 9,500. So surely, Speaker, the focus should be placed on increasing the dealing cases and big hauls, on targeting the so-called high flyers and distributors, and not small-time drug users of less than 1 gram. If we're serious about combating the availability of drugs in our communities, we have to be serious about stopping distribution. By way of example, where there have been successes, and to show how a shift in focus can yield better results, in 10% of cases analyzed equaled 98% of the total mass of drugs. This is where we should be focusing, Speaker. So the problem is not that we don't have the ability or the technology. We do. We just have to adjust our priorities and our strategies to align them to where there can be the largest impact in the interest of safety in our communities. Increased crime and violence also contributes to a breakdown in relations with civil society, which is another concern indicated in the report. Communities that have good levels of trust with the police tend to be more willing to report crime. Conversely, communities that have poor relations with the police tend to report less. Some community members surveyed said that they don't report crimes to the police because they fear retaliation from the perpetrators or from the police themselves. A participant in the study said, quote, that the police do many dealings with criminals. The community needs to know where to report the police, not to report a corrupt police to another police because you cannot report Satan to the devil, close quote. There's no clearer indication of mistrust between the community and the police, and this is something that should be investigated by the Ombudsman. Community members said that greater police visibility and law enforcement can help deal with violence and crime. A respondent said, quote, we want more police visibility because scollies move in numbers and we cannot win the battle on our own, close quote. Police visibility, open quote, lacks in our area. They also take a long time to come when there's a crisis, close quote. It's unsurprising as Philippi East has a police to population ratio of 1 officer to every 444 citizens. That's less officers than the average for the province, which is at 385 citizens per officer. And if we look at detectives, each detective is dealing with an average of 116 dockets each, which is 3 times higher than the norm. So in conclusion, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the report makes several recommendations. It suggests that there should be a strong focus on the quality and appropriateness of the strategy in question rather than its quantity. And so I wish to quote from Richard Rummelt's book, Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, as it neatly summarizes our strategic misalignment. When organizations are unable to make new strategies, when people evade the work of choosing among different paths in the future, you get vague mom and apple pie goals everyone can agree on. Such goals are direct evidence of leadership's insufficient will or political power to make or enforce hard choices. But he said, most organizations will not create focused strategies. Instead, they will generate laundry lists of desirable outcomes and ignore the need for coordinating and focusing their resources. Good strategy requires leaders who are willing and able to say no to a wide variety of actions and interests. Strategy is at least as much about what an organization does not do as it is about what it does. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Lekker. Order.
Thank you, Deputy
Honourable
Speaker.
Jantji. Order. Allow the member lekker te gooi kolen, not the Honourable Jantji. Please continue.
Deputy Speaker, I would like to pay tribute to many victims of violent murders in the province. Equally, I salute the men and women in blue who lost their lives in the line of duty in pursuit of criminals who are constantly terrorizing our communities. The Urban Safety Report released in August 2017 exposes what we've been arguing in these chambers. The report acknowledges that on average, there are less than half people likely murdered today than they were in 1994-95 period. This must be applauded. The ANC-led government in this province managed to work so hard and reduce murder rate from 55% to 40% between 2005 and 2009. In contrast, murder rate has since increased from 40% to 62% between 2009 and 2016. Clearly, the ANC gains were reversed by the DA-led government. I was appalled by the reaction of Honourable MEC Plateau, who in his statement conveniently left some of the key observations of the report. The report highlights the fact that interpersonal crimes of violence are often described as social fabric crime, which are not always premeditated. They are the reflection of socio-economic factors such as alcohol, substance abuse, drug abuse, unemployment, and poverty than a mere ineffectiveness of policing. Cape Town has the highest rate of crime detected through police action. This is commendable. Cape Town has lower rapid population growth than Johannesburg and Tshwane, lower population density than Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni, whilst it has lowest income inequality and second lowest youth unemployment rate. His concentration became confined into the number of sub-police officers in the province, whilst ignoring positive role played by the policing as mentioned in the report. His government undermined the very alcohol harms reduction game changer by wanting to introduce selling of alcohol in school premises for whatever reason. This will never augur well with the law-abiding citizens in this province. The 50 working buses is a complete failure. Youth programs, Chrysalis Academy, Youth Safety and Religious Partners are a drop in the ocean considering the magnitude of the crime rate and youth unemployment in the province. Many of the CPFs are undermined by the very department which is supposed to give support to. Instead, they want to interfere with their operation, including influencing their elections into office. This practice is not going unnoticed and will be challenged at all times. Under the DA-led government and contrary to the rest of South Africa, Western Cape's murder rate is on the rise. Cape Town has doubled the rate since 2009-2010 by 40%. The report further suggests that the city's extremely high levels of crime are as a result of access to alcohol, drugs, and firearms. On the other hand, the DA-led government closed one of the successful Bambanani community project, which was instrumental in reducing the levels of crime under the ANC-led government. These community volunteers were the eyes and opens on the ground. They were everywhere on the street, on school premises, clinics and hospitals, and worked hand in gloves with the security agents such as SAPS. They turned the substations to be community police stations and changed the perception that police officers are enemies of the people. Indeed, with the stipend that was awarded to them, the essence of Bambanani project lessened unemployment, poverty. And what Member Wenja is not saying in this house is that with the visit that we paid at Delft, it was highlighted that poverty, high levels of unemployment, is indeed the cause of many violent crime. She omitted to tell it deliberately. Although relatively below national average, robberies in residential premises are reportedly on the rise. Burglaries are stubbornly high in Cape Town since 2008 and 9. Carjacking rate has gone up since 2013-14. According to South African Banking Risk Information, it was reported that in August 2017, cash in transit heist rose by 135%, while countrywide it is only 49%. The Philippi East case study confirms this reality. In 2015-2016, Philippi East recorded 217 murders, 843 robberies, while property-related crimes were 704, which is behind Hillbrow by 1376. Sexual offenses rate was topping at 225, followed by KwaMashu at 126. The survey found that there is low level of education, which is a contributor of high employment rate in this province amongst the youth. Equally, there is a lack of community cohesion, which has a potential of undermining crime prevention efforts and intervention. Cape Town is also rated as second city after Mangaung for violent interpersonal crimes and also recorded the highest of both violent and non-violent property crime. The City of Cape Town's 5-year IDP plan offers very little, if any, strategies to fight violent crimes in the city. The ceasefire project has been a complete failure in many cases than one. In fact, gang fights are a major contributing factor in increasing rate of murders in the city of Cape Town. The VPUU program needs to redirect hotspot communities such as Nyanga, Philippi, and Menenberg, where crime activities are ripe. In March 2016, the City of Cape Town introduced CCTV cameras under the Integrated Safety and Security, which was a disappointment was the fact that those cameras were installed in CBD areas, neglecting areas like Philippi East, and in the same time, they put fire shot spotters, which are not even used to collate evidence to this effect and are not effective for that matter. Further, the City of Cape Town's own social development strategies acknowledges that income inequality are persistent in the region and economic growth have not benefited the poorer communities, and racial profile of poverty is expressed in the city's special dimension but offers no tangible solution. Hence, the report found that areas like Philippi lacks social cohesion and integration. The strategy is quiet on the question of youth unemployment. This shows how this DA-led government has no clue of how to take young out of the social ills, namely the abject poverty and hopelessness. Driving under the influence of alcohol is squarely under the municipality's mandate and has seen it going up by 60%. Where are the city law enforcement agencies, with all their resources at the disposal of a DA-led municipality, which is failing the people of Cape Town? The recommendations are quite instructive in that they are calling for the development of long-term urban safety strategies, developing capacity within local government, activating resources, active communities, design cohesion and safety, and promote adequate resources capacity. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Basil Kividu.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, honourable fellow members.
Order.
Please protect me, your protection, please.
I will protect you, yes. I'm not sure what's happening now, but you may... Order. Honourable Lecker.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, honourable fellow members, support staff, members of the media, and especially our distinguished guests in the gallery, and I feel particularly honoured and privileged to have my constituents from Tygerberg 1 here today, the ward councillors and the activists and also the other distinguished guests. Very welcome in this house. The 2017 State of the Urban Safety Report highlights that many people living within the Western Cape live in high levels of fear on a day-to-day basis and are increasingly losing faith in our justice system to adequately address the issue of crime and violence in our province. Deputy Speaker, the people living within our communities are truly suffering to the extent that they have been held ransom to gangsters. Many of them high crime areas remind me of the days when I was a soldier myself. Yes, Speaker, many of these areas closely resemble war zones, similar to what I was exposed to while fighting for the freedom of this country. Except today, the war being fought is between the gangs, which hold our province hostage in the crossfire. Honourable Deputy Speaker, my heart cries for our people. No longer can our children freely roam the streets playing sport or simply walk down the road to visit a family member without fear of being killed by a stray bullet. Our children are being deprived of the simple pleasures that they should be afforded in our country. Where a child once played, he now cocks a gun. Where a young boy once aspired to be a sportsman, a fireman, or a lawyer, he now seeks the approval of the older peers and the sense of belonging that comes from joining their gang. Our communities are fractured when our children are too easily sucked into a life-changing web of illegal activity instead of prosperous and dignified opportunity. Deputy Speaker, police corruption and involvement in criminal activities need to be investigated. And an anonymous reporting channel for our people should be created. In many instances, we find that our so-called trusted police officers are protecting the criminals that people report, and in fact pose a greater danger to citizens as they act as whistleblowers to gangsters. In a report earlier this year, it was revealed that 706 police officials had been arrested for criminal activity in the 2016-17 financial year, compared to 725 in 2015-16. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, this is a very worrying statistic when we consider that in light of these findings, over 1,400 officers cannot be trusted. Furthermore, at a time when police resources are limited as it is, we need to put a stop to the large number of police officers who are on the payroll of gang lords, to the extent that many officers share intimate friendships with the very gang members, killing our innocent people in our province. When coming to terms with reality and putting these numbers into perspective, it does not come at a surprise that the conviction rate for gang-related murders and violence is as low as 3% in the Western Cape. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I am gravely concerned with regards to how the President of our country has a complete disregard for the lived experiences of the people of our province. In May this year, President Jacob Zuma blamed the police for the tragedy of the murder victim Courtney Peters, 3 years old, in Silberbau, Elsies River. Furthermore, the President's response to the young child's murder was to simply hand over 10,000 rand in cash as a form of wicked compensation to the family, as if to say that a young girl's life is merely worth a sum of money that is pocket change for him and the Guptas. Speaker, if Jacob Zuma believes that this is a viable solution to such tragedies being witnessed amongst the people of our province on a day-to-day basis, why have the families of other victims of similar cases not also been compensated for? To beg the question is simply not necessary, as it is clear that he used this tragedy, which is quickly becoming a norm due to the failure of police to address such issues, a mere way of scoring political points. En hy het die vermetelheid gehad om ons in Tygerberg 1 te sê hoe om bendegeweld te stop. Hy en Fikile Cowboy Mbulula. Die feit is, hy kan sy, president Zuma kan sy hoenders in Kandla gaan vertel hoe om dit te doen, dan glo hulle hom ook nie eens nie. Ja, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, on the 9th of September, Equil David, a 9-year-old boy, was in a crossfire between gangs while in the Ocean View home and died late in hospital. On August the 3rd, Ezra Daniels, a 7-year-old boy, was shot dead in Grassy Park. My heart cries out and cannot even fathom the actual extent to the trauma and suffering these children and their families are going through. Deputy Speaker, only a holistic approach through the efforts of all spheres of society can put a stop to these demonic acts of violence being witnessed in our communities. We are in desperate need of the parents of these perpetrators to step in where possible. Too many times do we hear that parents are covering up for their children who are either gangsters or in fact the perpetrators of these acts of violence. In doing so, they are just as guilty as those committing the crimes. Thus, parents have a major role to play in fighting both crime and gang violence. Deputy Speaker, today's children will be the adults of the future. Will their children face the same woes in which they now live? The same violent realities of their everyday lives? At this rate, many of our children will only make it to adulthood if they can successfully dodge the bullets. Parents, family, friends, and other support structures can help these children. So can police officers, honest police officers, who make it through a gauntlet of politics, vendettas, and internal conflicts, and who legitimately work to snuff out crime and clamp down on illegal firearms. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. I see the Honourable Wiley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. On Monday evening, I was alerted to another shooting in the community of Ocean View. The victim was a 23-year-old trainee fireman, apparently with no obvious gang connection. He had stepped out of his flat just meters away to buy a sweet at a shop in the flat next door. As he turned to exit the little fenced-off yard, his assailant shot him 3 times in the head. He died instantly where he fell, the sweet still clutched in his hand. Who shot him? The community is not saying because they are terrified. Te veel ooggetuies is vermoor in daardie gemeenskap en die bendeleiers bly nog net waar hulle altyd was. Die enigste tyd dat hulle vasgevat word is wanneer hulle mekaar uitroei in bendegevegte. This is the second killing in 3 days in that township. A 9-year-old was shot in his own home through a closed door in the early hours of Saturday morning by gangsters chasing a victim. The horrible truth is that Ocean View, a small community serviced by a poorly resourced police station, has seen an explosion of violence in recent years. Just last year, that precinct saw 41 murders, up from 26 the previous year. Most are gunshot victims within Ocean View. Many are innocent bystanders. I take note of the comment made by Honourable Lecker with regard to the walking bus being a failure. I take even more note, Honourable Dianki's comment to say that the walking bus initiative is for the rich. You tell that to the walking bus people represent here today. The question is,
Order.
Where do these guns come from?
Order, member.
Ones that
Order.
seem so readily...
Honourable Wiley, just 1 second. Honourable Gillian. I'm listening.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, can you ask the Chief Whip to stop pointing fingers and talking to our members? He must talk to you.
Order. Honourable Wiley, just refer to the members and honourable members when you continue. Thank you.
As difficult as it may be, yes, Deputy Speaker. The question is, where do these guns come from? The ones that seem so readily available and so publicly carried and often used by juveniles. They can't be stolen from local residents, as the statistics don't bear that out. So they are either smuggled into the country or illegally procured from official sources. We all know about the thousands of firearms surrendered to SAPS for destruction. But we all also know that they are sold to gangs and criminals. Over 2,000 in the Provincial case were admitted to, and he's been jailed for 18 years. Over the years, I have personally surrendered 4 firearms, and I wonder how many of these have landed in the hands of killers. We all know about SAPS officers and private cash and transit guards being killed for their firearms, but this is often proved to be lone individuals and not necessarily organized gangs. Cash and transit robberies in the Western Cape, as Pat Lecker, the Honourable Lecker has said, have gone up to 135% from last year as opposed to the national average of 40%. She uses this as a motivation. The police and intelligence agencies are only a national competence. We also know of state weapons being taken out of armories, a crime being committed, and then weapons being returned for safekeeping. Through Project MP, who investigated these matters, alleged that some 1,066 murders were committed with smuggled firearms. By now, in the last few years, a new phenomenon has started to take hold. Wholesale raids on state armories and the theft of large quantities of weapons and munitions have become commonplace. Belleville South and Mitchell's Plain, SAPS are mentioned in recent weeks. The Deputy Police Minister admitted, I quote, SAPS officers are stealing the guns and giving it to the gangs. These thefts are not just handguns, but automatic assault rifle and high-powered ammunition. In a recent report tabled in court, identifies 261 children in the Western Cape who have been shot between 2010 and 2016 with guns stolen from police, often with active police complicity. And not just SAPS, but the SANDF as well. A few weeks ago, several assault rifles and quantities of ammunition apparently disappeared from a duty shift at Silvermine military base. Other cases from supposedly high security depots have been reported, most notably the one from the Navy ammunition depot in Simonstown last year. Guns, grenades, mortar rounds, and artillery ammunition were involved. And these are just some of the cases. There are many more. How on earth is this possible? We are meant to be in a sophisticated country that abides by the rule of law, has strict constitutional and other legal instruments to ensure that our security forces are just that, secure. And yet, in truth, it is not. It is a common thread in this disintegration of any acceptable standard and national pride, and that is the ANC national government. Former President Kgalema Motlanthe earlier this week said as much. The apathy, sloth, duty-averse and ill discipline of deployed ANC cadres within the security forces have ensured its mutual destruction. Negligence, dereliction and a total lack of accountability are obvious to all. How else can one explain SAPS losing 7,829 firearms between 2009 and 2014? Where is the ministerial, nay presidential outrage, the suspension, the boards of inquiry, the reassurance to the public that accountability will prevail and order restored? Just ongoing bickering amongst rivals in the top structures of SAPS and allegations of plots to oust the minister and any manager who wants to stand up to thugs, malcontents, and criminally inclined in the service. Without fail, ANC factionalism is at the root of these fights. What about looking after ordinary constable on the ground who has to live with daily violence, public distrust, and under-resourcing? No wonder they are stressed to hell. And the public tolerance level is not far behind. Society is traumatized and frustrated. How do you explain that the armed insurrection against the Ounsoon SAPS station, led by the SANDF general with dozens of troops in 2014, has yet to be finalized in court, albeit on reduced minor charges? The SANDF refused to lay departmental charges. On the contrary, the general was promoted. Why did the minister and the SAPS management not insist on due process being followed and stand by their men in blue? Similarly, the SANAD thefts have yet to see any demonstrated accountability. No release of a Board of Inquiry report, no demotions, no courts-martial. By stark contrast, when 2 US Navy collisions occurred earlier this year, the world knew within weeks that the admiral in charge of the fleet was relieved of duty, loss of command. And every person from the commander of the ships to the lowly watch crew by name and rank were either suspended, demoted, or sent to an off-site post pending final findings. Similar prompt and measured actions occur in every security service worth its salt, with a specific intent that the integrity of that service is, internally and to the public at large, greater than the individual sensitivities and partisan loyalties. It is the only way to restore public confidence in an essential service. Why do we find this basic concept so difficult? Or is it because it's part of a destabilization that is deliberate? It's so blatant that terrible societal consequences are so obvious. 18,000 murders so far this year in South Africa, that no one can be blamed for asking the question if it is deliberate. The problem with fomenting violence and civil unrest is that the first part is easy. It's a normalization afterwards that is so elusive. The ANC constantly says the problem is firstly socio-economic problem, as Honourable Lekker said. It is not. It is first and foremost a sovereign constitutional obligation for the state to provide a safe environment for its citizens to live and work in. One can have the best schools in the world, but it means nothing if they are constantly trashed and teachers and pupils are threatened and killed. You can have the best health services, but if the ambulance get attacked and gunfights break out afterwards, it means nothing. You can have the prettiest neighborhood with the nicest houses, but it means nothing if criminals rape, murder, and steal at will without retribution. When will the ANC own up to their mistakes and simply do what the public rightly demands and for which the public pays for in blood and taxes?
Order, remember your time has expired also now. Honourable Diana.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I'm very much disappointed by the
We can
two
only have one
honourable
speaker on the floor,
members.
Honourable Diana. Honourable Gaka, please come to order.
I'm very much disappointed by the two honourable members because there's no plan of action. They are just complaining. The other one is talking about the president. I don't know where does President Zuma feature in Western Cape. We must face the reality here. The 2017 State of Urban Safety in South Africa report highlights the disproportionate access to alcohol, drugs, and firearms, which is more than twice that of any other city as the driving force behind the city's extremely high levels of crime. Today, the DA government is trying to blame the high levels of crime on the SEPs for not being able to reduce the availability of guns and drugs in Cape Town communities. They conveniently forget to include the availability of alcohol, which was one of the findings of the report. Drug and alcohol abuse are serious social ills, which need the prevention through educational awareness programs and campaigns. Since the DA failed to govern the people, they are now resorting to blame the SEPs for not carrying the illness they cannot prevent. The SEPs is not responsible for liquor sales or drug abuse. These addictions fall in the offices of the social development and health departments. When you ask the MECs or the Premier why there is extraordinary substance abuse in the province, without mentioning progress on combating these social ills, they reply, clean audits. Clean audits do not prevent the abuse of drugs and alcohol in Cape Town and the entire province. Deputy Speaker, we note the recent theft of guns in Bellville South and Mitchell's Plain Police Departments and welcome the head-on approach by the Minister and his deputy by placing the blame on police officers that stole the guns. We welcome the approach that seeks to improve the challenges currently facing the SEPs and encourage them to trace the weapons which should be destroyed without fear or favor. The SEPs has various services which enable the public to contact them regarding service complaints, reporting a crime, reporting of a missing person, reporting of sexual offenses, applying for protection order, and how to become a reservist. Through these services, there is public engagement and communication, which allows the public to participate in the operations and efficient function of policing. Deputy Speaker, with these services and functions in place, one cannot make a wild statement that SEPs is responsible for failing to reduce availability of alcohol, drugs, and guns in Cape communities, which is contributing to a breakdown in relations with civil society. An example of this is the high reporting rate of crime detected through police actions, where Cape Town police stations have the highest rate as seen in figure 14. Another point of active police visibility is the low car hijacking and residential robbery rate compared to other cities. The report notes this is as a result of increase in police activity. Deputy Speaker, we should point out that the availability of drugs and illegal firearms have doubled since 2009. Why is this relevant? Because the DA took over the province in 2009. This rate has been multiplying year on year, and the last 2 years is evidence thereof. The amount of female children and adults murdered in the province were nowhere near the high levels where they are today under DA governance. Johannesburg was gangsters' paradise. Today, under DA rule, Nyanga and Cape Town is the murder capital of South Africa. Cape Town always had good social structural indicators which have been known to have an impact on crime. The only conclusion we can draw is that under the DA government, they have not invested time, human resources, and development in our Cape Flats and townships. Crime is not running loose in your affluent areas, just where our people stay. We all know and acknowledge the shortage of resources at SEPS, which makes it difficult to deploy more officers in our communities. But with the limited resources, SEPS is doing what they reasonable can in fighting crime and gangs. We read week and week around how suspects are arrested and guns have been confiscated. We read about how drugs and illegal alcohol are confiscated. So the subject for debate is not only deliberate untruth, but it is also misleading and opportunistic. It seeks to hide DA failures of not investing in crime and in the fight against drugs. When gangs terrorize communities, killing school children, the response from this DA government is establishing of working buses.
Just 1 second, Honourable Kividu.
Point of order in terms of the interpretation of this topic. The
I
member
know,
says
sit down, because when I'm on Zoom, can you
that
please
we
sit down?
are misleading the House.
Can you please sit down?
Order.
You are
You're wasting
misleading
my
the House.
time. You must go to old age
Order.
home. Sit
You are
down.
misleading the House.
Shinai Suka.
Order,
Asale phansi.
Honourable Diana.
I'm
Just
on
wait a
my
minute.
feet.
Order,
I'm on my feet.
Honourable Diana.
Deputy Speaker.
He's raising a point of order and give him a
I'm on
chance
my
to raise a
feet.
point of
On
order
what?
before I can rule on it. Honourable Kividu, what are you saying? Honourable Kividu.
The point of order is that our facts were based on statistical,
Order.
verifiable facts.
Order.
Finish.
Order, Member Kividu. That is not a point of order. The member may continue.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. You are out of order, ma'am. Because when I was speaking about Jacob Zuma Upper, which is not in the stats, I'm talking about the stats. Can you please sit down?
Order,
Keep
order.
quiet or you must go to old age home.
Honourable Diana.
It seeks to hide the DA failures of
Honourable
not
Diana.
investing
Order.
in...
Address the chair, please, and not the member on the other side.
It seeks to hide DA failures of not investing in crime and in the fight against drugs. When gangs terrorize communities, killing school children, the response from this DA government is establishing of working buses. Why are you not deploying Metro Police? Why are you not sending your ghost squad? The DA is killing CPFs who have a critical role to play in this fight. Instead, they are funding neighborhood watches with no trainings. I believe the urban safety report exposed the failures of this provincial government. I thank you.
Thank you, Member. The Honourable Minister Wendy.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. First of all, it's an honour to be able to speak in this debate today, and I speak in the place of Minister Dan Plato, who is, as we speak, up the coast a little bit, dealing with an issue there around policing and making sure that we have safe communities. And so I take part in this debate. And I would also like to echo the words of the Honourable Lecker when she started by saying she would like to pay tribute to the victims of crime in this province, and I will do exactly the same thing. I think I think it must be horrendous living in some of the communities that our people live in this province. And when we stand here and we quote numbers, and these numbers are people. These numbers are families. These numbers are people and families who've lost loved ones. And I really do take and use this opportunity to give tribute to every single one of them. This debate, I think, needs me to start off by a short little story. I had the honor of being with some community members who are actually here today, and I spent a short time with them and listening to their story. In their community, in the last year, 41 people have been murdered. This is a small community. This is a small community living by the ocean. This is a small community. When you think of that community, you would think of a community who is out of the hustle and bustle, that actually have really the kind of life that we all strive for, to move to some coastal town, some coastal community, to live a relaxed life and enjoy this amazing place that we call home. The murder rate in this community called Ocean View has been climbing exponentially year on year. And when you speak to people in this community, they rattle off names like Jesus, Ebi, Timer, Pepe, Durkee, Road Dog. These are the guys who carry guns around in this small community, taking people's lives. People live in fear. The stories that you hear that the police station itself is closed and barricaded by 9 o'clock at night because the policeman or woman inside is too scared to have a police station open. Where is a community able to go when they are fearful and scared? They cannot go to their police station. They do not trust. They do not trust.
Order, member. Minister, you may continue.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. This is a very, very serious debate. A very serious debate. People's lives are lost on a daily basis in this province.
Order, member. Honourable Gaka. Allow the member, the minister, to respond to the debate.
Horrendous part is in our communities, we should be able to trust our police. We should be able to trust our police, and it doesn't matter whether it's this community. In all communities, you will hear the same story. Police are in the pockets of the criminals. The police are scared themselves. Society is not able to speak up. We are in a very, very difficult space in our province. If you listen to the debate, you would have heard lots of numbers quoted today. The Honourable Lekker spent a lot of time talking about numbers. The Honourable Chief Whip, the same thing. The Honourable Wenger, the same thing. We spoke about this study. We speak about other commissions of inquiry. If I take some of these numbers, if we look at, and the words from the ANC, we're sitting in the worst crime stats in South Africa here. The sad part was that when the Honourable Lekker spoke, she spoke about these high numbers. She just said this is true, and she speaks almost with pride that these numbers are so high. Almost with pride that these numbers are so high. It is shocking. The number 78 per 100,000 murders in Hillbrow versus 217 per 100,000 murders, not in Philippi, but in Philippi East. 40% of South Africa's drug-related crime is here in the city of Cape Town. The highest crime rate of any metro, Cape Town is actually double than the crime rate of other metros in our country. 85, but now we have a look at these numbers, 85% of the Western Cape police stations are under-resourced. Under-resourced. We've got some of the highest levels in the country, but 85% are under-resourced. The Honourable Wiley says that 7,829 guns were lost or stolen. The Honourable Lekker talks about CCTV. She talks about CCTV, and Let me tell you about CCTV. She says, no CCTV, did you say no CCTV cameras in Khayelitsha? So in Mitchell's Plain, there are 14 CCTV cameras. In Sea Point, there are 14. In Khayelitsha, there are 16. Khayelitsha's got the second most CCTV cameras of any suburb in the city of Cape Town. The only part that has more than that is the central CBD, which is paid for by private business. But let's talk about those CCTV cameras and the police force. Did you know that in the last 10 years, they have only gone and taken 5 times CCTV footage for crime? Only 5 in the last 10 years have they taken footage in crime. I mean, these numbers are truly shocking and unbelievable.
Minister, just 1 second. Honourable Gauke, is the question?
Deputy Speaker, can I ask the question to the...
Minister, are you prepared to take a question? The Minister is prepared. You may continue.
Okay. I just want to ask, if we found a dead body next to a camera, and that camera is not working, who should be blamed?
It depends on whose camera it is, I suppose. I'm not sure how to answer that question. We need real questions here in this House. So let's get back to the real numbers, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So we hear how these numbers of high crime rates are because of this government.
Order.
Are because of this government.
Minister, just order. Honourable Gauke, is there a follow-up question?
Yes, Speaker.
Minister, are you prepared?
I need the answer.
Just 1 second. Minister, are you prepared to take another question? You may continue.
Try again.
Deputy Speaker, a camera which is put there by the city of Cape Town, and that camera we found a body there. Who must take responsibility for that if that camera is not working? I want the minister who is in government in this province to answer me.
You put your question. Minister, you may proceed if you want to.
I said to him when I answered, whoever owns that camera will take responsibility for that camera. If you go and read the report, 76% of those cameras were visited and checked, were to be working. And obviously, if something fails, you've got to go and fix it. That's a simple answer. But let's get to the real issue here. Let's get to the real issue. So this side of the House keeps on saying that it's this government's responsibility. But let's finish with the numbers. So the Constitution says that this House has an oversight role. And that oversight role gets a budget. That oversight role gets a budget of 302 million rand.
Order. Honourable Lekker and Honourable Diana. Order.
Both of those members have had opportunity to talk in this debate, and I did not interrupt them in ongoing conversation.
You're quite correct. Order. Order, members. I want the Minister to continue now, and I want silence in the House from the back there.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. So the budget is 302 million rand in this province for oversight. The overall policing budget is 82,388 million. 82,388 million. That buys 192,400 police officers. Not one of those police officers are appointed by this government. Not one. They are all appointed by the national government. It is a national government competency. The 82.388 billion rand is their budget. Not our budget, is their budget. And what that buys in this province, it buys 16,500 active policemen. It buys 16,500 active policemen in a province with 40% of its crime drug-related, of the highest metro crime in the country, of these levels that the Honourable Lekker feels so proud about, but her own government only gives 16,500 police officers to this province of the 192,000. They give a minuscule amount of the 82 billion, the 82,388 million rand that is spent on policing in this country. And then one wonders, because you know that when you hear all of these things, it's about management. It's about management and resource. And when management sits down and has a look at where the big problems are, where communities are suffering because people are dying because of drugs, because of alcohol abuse, because of crime, management takes a decision and says we will apportion action plans, we will put resource into this, and we will send police force, and we will seriously attack or tackle these issues. This government, run by the ANC, putting that kind of resource into this problem shows us that there is no will to fix the crime in this province, that they stand there and very proudly talk about these high numbers of crime. The ANC proudly talks about these high numbers of crime. That is totally unacceptable, and they need to wake up to the fact that they are responsible for these crime levels, and they need to put the resource in, because the people of this province deserve way better.
Order. Minister, just 1 second. Honourable Mukaka, is that another question?
The last question.
Minister, are you prepared?
I just want to ask the minister.
Order, Minister Mukaka. Unfortunately, the minister's time has expired at this spot, so there's no time for another question. We've reached the end of this debate. We move on to the question paper, to interpellations. The first interpellation, the Honourable Wenger, to Minister Plaat, Chief Whip.
Speaker, as mentioned by the Acting Premier, that Minister Plato is busy at the moment in Kleinmont, assisting with trying to de-escalate the violence there, and has asked whether this could stand down, and he has liaised with Member Wenger in this regard.
So this one will not be dealt with now. We move then on to the third one. I understand the second one is also not being dealt with. Is that correct?
That is correct. Minister Burdell is unfortunately ill at the moment.
The third one is Honourable Janchi to Minister Mbombo. I see Minister Mbombo. Order.
Thank you for the question. Yes, the province is on track to improve health indicators in all health districts, as documented in the 2016-17. Just to make an example of the few, those are related to the children, the mothers, and the communicable disease, that is HIV and TB. If we look at the total children remaining on ARTs, for example, for the last year, we're about more than 90% in terms of the coverage. The TB client loss to follow-up rate, which is above 80%. The TB death rate, which has managed to reduce in the province, because now TB is the second cause of death in the province. The TB MDR confirmed treatment initiation rate, we've made a progress, but it's not enough in terms of that, because when it comes to the MDR, some patients, they always drop, not only drop out, but also the prognosis is poor. The mother postnatal visit within 6 days, there's been a progress, but again, it's not a satisfactory one, although we are still around 60% when our target is 77% for mummies coming within 6 days after delivery. But I can talk later, if time permitting, in terms of what interventions. Immunization coverage under 1 year, we are doing good. We're above 80%. Children under 5 years, diarrhea case fatality rate. This one, we are coming from far, where we had quite a lot of children affected by the diarrhea, but now we have improved tremendously. Children under 5 years suffering from pneumonia in terms of the case fatality rate. Also this one, there were cases where we plateaued, but at least now there's been an improvement around that. Maternal mortality, we're doing fine with that. The inpatient early neonatal death rate, there's been a progress in terms of the improvement. Again, the issue in terms of the figures is not necessarily satisfactory because of the denominator, because we're talking about the target of 5 cases, which is we had 7 cases in the previous year. The measles under 1 year coverage, we're at 95%. The pneumococcal vaccine for the 3rd dose, we're above 85%. The rotavirus for the 2nd dose coverage. I'm just capturing some of those that are sort of crucial. So that's where we are. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honourable Janchi.
Baie dankie die young speaker, and thank you very much to the minister for that response. I just want to, Minister, you know that I've asked you this question in 2015. and set cover for us from 2011, 12, 12, 13, and 13, 14. I've again in 27 asked you the question to say what has been the progress in 2 years. And I've been very specific to say the critical district. You did say that you just did an overall. Because when you say you are improving, I want to give you back that question next time when you stand up to really respond to that. Do you think that you are making progress as a province in terms of these health indicators? Or you can confirm some of the things that I'm going to share with you that indicate that you are not making progress. And the district that I've chosen is Khayelitsha district, is Mitchell's Plain, and Tygerberg. Because the part of my question referred to critical health district. That as part of your entire thing, you do know that these districts are very critical in a number of areas. For example, I take what you say that in 2015, maybe let me just start there on the infant mortality rates. In 2014, we had, 2013 to be exact, 11,015 mortality rates of 1 year old. As we speak today, you've got 11,223. That can't be fine. That's not progress. Even one child lost is one too many. I'm giving you that as an example. And I want to go further and share with you in terms of 2 years later, in 2015. Quite correctly, you are right in saying that there's been a steady decline in a number of these indicators, but there clearly is those sharp ones that is clear that there are problems in those 3 districts that I wanted to share with you. And I'm just wanting to take the HIV and AIDS rate in the Culture Health District, in Mitchell's Plain, and in Tygerberg Health District in 2017. From 2014 up to 2017, it started at 32,000, 35,000, and it's now at 39,000. That is Khayelitsha. In your HIV and AIDS rate, that's not progress. That can't be fine. It's getting worse. And I want you to speak about that. If you go to the Mitchell's Plain Health District, it was 17,000, 18,000 the next year, and now it is 21,000.
Remember, your time is
It can't be fine.
Your time is expired in this slot. I see the Honourable Bhuta.
Okay, just give your time to me because I've got so much here to do.
Order.
Okay, I'll consider it. Deputy Speaker, the vision of the Department of Health in this province is to ensure that all residents have access to person-centered quality care. It is therefore critical that we continue improving on the delivery of health services across the province. In saying that, one cannot but commend Minister Mbombo and the department for working so hard to ensure that those using health services only get quality care. But by the same token or means, we are not saying that there are no gaps. And I want to ask the Minister, in terms of the quality service care to patients, what is the complaints that the department receive in terms of the quality care rendered to patients? And
Order, member.
but I also want to allude, Deputy Speaker, to the examples of the state-of-the-art clinic in Beaufort West, which replaced the old Hillside Clinic in May in this year. You had your chance, did you not?
Honourable Janki.
The Green Clinic, as it's
Please come to
called,
order
because
now.
it's an environmentally friendly building now, has corridors that are wide enough to incorporate patient waiting areas. And furthermore, Deputy Speaker, through the Back to Basic initiative at the Mitchell's Plain CDC, the overall waiting times for chronic medication have been reduced from 185 minutes to 76 minutes, while collecting pre-packed medication now takes patients about 5 to 10 minutes. And this is all part of delivering person-centered care in this department.
Honourable Janki, now is your turn.
I hope that those wasted 2 minutes. Just on the diarrhea, MEC, again, those 3 districts. Kailicha, from 102 to now 137. Mitchell's Plain, from 95 to now to 138. I mean, I clearly can't see that as improvement. Let me share this with you. A quote from one professor. Cape Town alone has more TB each year than the US, Canada, UK, and Germany put together. Cape Town, not South Africa. Cape Town. Just listen to that. Surely, that is a crisis. And we know it is so. And yet you can't come here and say we're making progress. You did allude to that you have challenges in the TB, but you're not coming out to say these are the challenges that we have with the problems that we have. It should also be noted that the high rate of TB stands in sharp contrast to the statistics which show that the province has the lowest HIV and AIDS prevalence. This might lead to an assumption that poverty levels, unemployment, and social challenges lead to the TB infection rate in the Western Cape. Honorable Wiley, the thing that you did not understand, which is not a health problem, is the problem of conditions. I thought I'll come back and share that with you so that you understand it better, which is not her problem as an MEC for health. It's about those kind of conditions. Let me proceed. Still on the TB, which is the biggest killer, just in terms of the distribution of high bed and TB clinics that you would know in your department, even across the province. You'd have in Neisner, you'd have in Bito, you'd have in Ceres, you'd have in Theewaterskloof, you'll have the bulk of that in the metro of Cape Town. I'm sure you know that better than me.
Order member, your time has expired. Honorable Botha.
Asseblief, man.
Honorable Botha.
Deputy Speaker, there is progress within this department. This department has embarked on an exciting project called Catch and Match that ensures that selected services are brought to the people that need them. The project brings selected services to people through community health workers by making home visits to catch those that are at a greater risk. The community health workers do door-to-door health promotions and support services where one community health worker visits 20 to 250 households in the 3 pilot sites, which is Nyanga, Delft, and Site C, ensuring that we are actually getting to the people. The department achieved 93% of its retention of care after 12 months, with 89% achieved after 48 months. This implementation strategy is proving to be quite successful. 91% of male condom distribution has also been achieved. And I want to ask the Minister, what is the feedback back to your department from the ground in terms of this male condom distribution project that you have, and the lessons learned from the Catch and Match project?
Member Botha, your time has expired. Honorable Janti, your last opportunity.
As in the last day. Sublief. Honorable MEC, because it's my last bite, going through the responses, which were very comprehensive between 2015 and 2017, it clearly there shows that out of if you have got 8 districts, that they are uneven. I've picked up the 3 critical ones. And my interest here now standing here is you surely can pick up that in certain districts things are going very well. Dare I say that it is those well-off districts. I didn't want to go there. Now, what is that you want to do as an MEC and this government to ensure that the positives that are happening in those districts are spread across other districts? And what is it? Because you do have plans. How do you refocus in your plans, resources, and priorities in terms of your Mitchell's Plain Health District, the Kailicha Health District, the Tigerberg Health District, and when it comes to other indicators, even your Eastern District, as challenges that we have? What is it that you'll do to bring them on par?
Thank you. The Minister to respond.
For 2 minutes.
Yes, 2 minutes.
It should have been oral. Okay. Firstly, the question that the member has indicated was, it says, in critical health district. So the districts, in terms of it's 6. So it's the 5 rural districts plus the metro. So the metro is a district on its own. Probably if you wanted to zoom to the metro, we'll say the substructures within the metro. And therefore, when you take metro as one district, it gives you the figures that I'm putting. And now, if now within the 8 substructures within the metro, and then you do, for example, the questions you ask about the infant mortality, it will give that there's been an improvement. But when you zoom in some specifics, as you have quoted, now the problem when you quote the figures, not a percentage, is because there is a denominator, which is the population in Khayelitsha is related. So if last year or 2014 there were 3 out of 10, and then today there are 5 out of 20, then it means that percentage-wise, you might say, if you only say 3 versus 5, then you think that is an increase. But if you don't go the denominator, it's problematic. Hence, you have to use, so that's why it's usually better to use the rates or the ratios, or the percentages, so that you can understand in terms of the trends. Same issue with the, no, what I'm saying that within the metro, when you zoom in the specific substructures, you will have the epidemiology where HIV might be high and others, like you go to the southern, like in the Masiphumelelo Ocean View, you can get the interpersonal violence is the highest, TB probably the 3rd. So you'll get all those fluctuations. So it's easier when you zoom per each substructure within the metro so that you could be able to answer such, but not focus on the number of cases, but it should be on the percentage so that, because the denominator, we don't know about that. And then the issue of the TB, out of the 4 provinces, Western Cape is one of the 4 provinces that have got the highest TB. And I'm talking about the current figures. And when it comes to, in terms of the where we are, it's a second biggest killer in terms of the Western Cape. In all other provinces, TB is the biggest killer. So we have improved 80%
Your
of
time has
success
expired,
treatment rate.
unfortunately.
We have improved TB. Bye-bye TB and HIV/AIDS.
Thank you. We move on to questions. Order. The first question, I take it the Minister of, Honourable Dugmore to Minister Windy will then respond to this. Minister Windy.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And I see that Honourable Dugmore is not here, but as the Honourable Dugmore is well aware, after a general election, the Premier delivers the State of the Province speech at the opening of a new Parliament. This speech sets out the new government's plans for its term of office by outlining the government's vision and policy for the term and by highlighting some concrete proposals which it hopes to implement. These proposals are submitted by provincial departments for inclusion into the speech and indicate new ideas and areas where the government would like to focus its attention. The Honourable Member will also be aware that at provincial government, we must also work with other spheres of government, and especially where there are concurrent or overlapping powers. This is acknowledged in his question. In addition, although the Premier, as head of government, reads the speech in Parliament, the Premier is not the implementing agent of every programme included in the speech. I can assure the Honourable Member that the Western Cape Government supports the establishment of special economic zones, and this has been demonstrated by the commitment, both financial and non-financial, of the Saldanha Bay IDZ and the Atlantis Special Economic Zone. There has been initial conceptual work done on the establishment of other SEZs for sectors such as aquaculture, health technology, and agri-processing. The establishment of an SEZ has high initial input costs, which include both pre-feasibility, feasibility studies, and which require a very strong degree of certainty that the application will meet the stringent scrutiny and approval of the SEZ Advisory Board. Consideration must also be given to whether the application will get approval from the various national departments, including National Treasury. In my capacity as Economic Opportunities, I can tell you that the Honourable Members that this issue of SEZs was discussed at the MINMEC, which I attend. This is the MINMEC of Trade and Industry and of Economic Development. And at that MINMEC, at the beginning of this term, we were advised that each province would be limited to one SEZ application. Our application for the green SEZ in Atlantis was therefore accepted, and we have had to park our other plans for the aquaculture, health technology, and agri-processing SEZs. Cooperative governance means making compromises, and we have had to compromise on this issue.
Follow-up, Honourable Bierwinkel.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the question 1 refers specifically to the SEZ between Hermanus and Gansbaai, and it wants to know what progress has been made so that abalone farmers can receive special tariffs and incentives in order to increase their production. I'd like to get that answer, please.
Minister, you may respond.
So if the honourable member listened to the answer, it was exactly the same, whether it was the aquaculture SEZ or the health tech SEZ, or even the work that is still carrying on in the agri-processing SEZ space, but we were advised to only submit the one. And of course, so therefore, in the aquaculture space, there is no special economic zone in the approval process or even in the application process, because, as I also said, that it was agreed at that MINMEC level. Although we wanted to submit 3 and 4 applications, it was agreed that each province should only submit one. And through our process of looking at which one would be or stand the best chance of getting a successful answer, we then did the work and came out with the green SEZ, which is the one that's actually been signed off by Minister Davies and is out for public comment at the moment.
Is there further follow-up, Honourable Bierwinkel?
Response, the answer is actually no. No progress has been made. But my follow-up question is, what's now going to happen to the promise that was made to these people in 2014 by the Premier?
Mr. Windy?
So I won't, without reading the answer again, you know, exactly the same thing was said about health tech. Exactly the same thing is said at the moment around agri-processing and halal. And of course, in each of those, the answer would be no special rates or taxation benefits would go to those industries because they would not be in a special economic zone until we could get one right. So perhaps the honourable member, if she wanted to get more detail on it, she could perhaps engage with both of the honourable ministers at a national level of the economy or DTI, and they could then tell us if we could get to have more than one special economic zone.
We move on to the second question. Honourable Dugmore to Minister Madikizela. Minister.
Speaker, the City of Cape Town maintains the housing demand database, has confirmed that the person in question has not registered an application with the city. It was further established that the said gentleman previously owned a property in Eitenhage and will therefore not qualify for a housing subsidy from government again.
Thank you. We move on in the absence of further questions. Question 3, I understand, will stand over in the absence of Minister Bredel. Question 4, Honourable Chacham to Minister Marais. Minister Marais.
Thank you for the question. The department annually makes a contribution to the minstrel bodies, Malay choirs and Christmas bands for the end of year festivities. The department annually supports the second New Year celebration by providing medical assistance in conjunction with the Department of Health and further contributes towards the transport cost of minstrel boards for the second New Year festivities. Further financial contribution is made towards the competitions of all compliant boards for venue hire, transport, sound, security and auditing fees. To facilitate a successful event, there are interactions with the City of Cape Town and other key role players to ensure the success of the events. Internally, the department has rendered support in formalizing processes by introducing a scorecard and templates for the recipients, which addresses issues of compliance to ensure effective and efficient management of government resources and a common understanding of the purpose and reporting requirements by recipients of funding. And the total budget allocation for the 17-18 financial year is R2,001,000. Thank you.
Thank you. We then move on to the next question. Question 5, Honourable Chacham to Minister Windy. Minister Windy.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. All legal and illegal evictions are dealt with in accordance according to specific processes as per the Extension of Security of Tenure Act 62 of 1997. These processes are the mandate of the National Department of Rural Development and Land Reform and administered as such by them. This department maintains the database of all evictions pertaining to agri-workers and farm dwellers. However, over and above that, my department has a sub-program called Farm Worker Development, the only one of its kind in the country, and this sub-program assists evicted agri-workers through the facilitation of access to appropriate departments and municipalities through its referral system in order to link them with services and support structures during this process, and or as and when this department is made aware of such cases. This sub-program also focuses on various strategic projects geared towards social upliftment and the development of agri-workers.
There are no follow-up questions. We then move on to question 6. Honourable Ace to Minister Grant. Minister Grant.
Deputy Speaker, the answer to question number 1 is that the City of Cape Town provides in its municipal service accounts a combination of actual water meter readings and estimates. The monthly municipal water accounts for the official residence of the Premier of Leeuwenhof, some of which includes estimates, are as follows. January 17, which was an estimate, 26.61 kilolitres. February 17, actual, 18.39 kilolitres. March 2017, an estimate, 19.63 kilolitres. April 17, actual, 21.37 kilolitres. May 17, an estimate, 20.81 kilolitres. June 17, an estimate, 21.53 kilolitres. July 17, an estimate, 32 kilolitres. Then in August 17, actual, 14 kilolitres. And then September 2017, month to date, 10 kilolitres. The average water monthly consumption for the residents, in terms of the above-mentioned billing, amounts to 20.48 kilolitres, which is below the monthly average of 21 kilolitres per household in terms of level 5 water restrictions. Then the answer to the second question, Deputy Speaker, is point 1. The existing borehole stroke well point at Leeuwenhof was reinstated and registered with the City of Cape Town in 2016 as a measure to manage water consumption in respect of the gardens. And point 2, a water purification installation to purify the stream water on the site was installed earlier this month at a cost of 92,754 rand and 56 cents. Once the City of Cape Town's Water Inspectorate has assessed the installation and approval has been obtained, the water will be directed to the residents for drinking water.
Is there a follow-up, Honourable Ace?
Honourable Deputy Speaker, we all know that there's a cap on all households of 20 kilolitre per month. But may I ask the Honourable Grant, what is the number of people residing at Leeuwenhof? Because that's important, because we know the restriction is 87 litres per day per individual. Can you just tell us, because it's important to calculate that?
Minister Grant.
Water supply.
Deputy Speaker, this is speculation based on my knowledge, but obviously I'm very seldom at Leeuwenhof. But obviously the Premier, her husband, and at least 1 or 2 other people in the main residence. In other words, a total of 4.
Honourable Ace.
I think there's speculation there, and we will have to clarify that, but that's still very concerned, Honourable Deputy Speaker. It's well over the limit set by the City of Cape Town. 87 litres per day per individual, and you can make your calculations now. But let me ask, what's happening around the swimming pool at Leeuwenhof, Honourable Grant?
Deputy Speaker, that's a new question. I don't know.
Your third opportunity.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, when we look at water management, we look at water management of all people in the metro, a swimming pool is integrated of what you do. Is it covered? Do you circulate it? Do you add new water to it every day? It's important to know that, and please answer that question.
Deputy Speaker,
that's the answer.
I'm happy to answer the question. It'll have to be a written reply, but I have no idea.
We then move on to the next question, the last question, Honourable Ace, again to Minister Grant. I see Minister Grant.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The answer to question A, how much water is being lost due to leaking pipes at premises of the Western Cape Government and its entities? Answer to that question is, until recently, it has not been technically possible for my department as custodian across an extensive system reliant on municipal billing to identify water loss and to relate this loss to specific causes, whether leaking pipes, leaking and broken taps, malfunctioning toilets, etc. In some cases, any water loss becomes apparent only because of unusual variations in water consumption, as reflected in water accounts. Even then, the leakage may be located in infrastructure for which the local municipality is responsible and not the custodian of the property. This difficulty is aggravated by the fact that approximately 80% of the entire provincial immovable asset portfolio comprises social infrastructure, in particular health and education facilities with multiple users and different legal entities responsible for settling water accounts. For example, in respect to the Western Cape Education Department, the accounts for water usage are paid direct by either the school governing bodies or by the WCED and monitored and managed by that department. In respect of health facilities, the Department of Health is responsible to ensure that mechanisms to measure, monitor and control water usage are in place. All cases of identified and reported water leakages are classified by my department as emergencies and dealt with accordingly. In response to question 7B, how is this measured? The response to A above has indicated what has until recently been the situation in relation to the measuring of water leakages. However, as custodian works, education infrastructure has undertaken research into leak detection initiatives. This has included the installation at 67 schools of AquaTrip, which is a permanently installed leak detection system monitoring the flow of water into a property, which is programmable so that the water will automatically switch off in the event of a burst geyser, burst pipes, taps left running, etc. Leaks are even detected after hours, resulting in the shutting off of the water supply, thereby eliminating any possible water wastage. Initial monitoring indicates significant water savings and the successful early identification of water loss. In many cases, the cost of installation is rapidly recouped. Once the pilot system has been completed, decisions on the further rollout of the system can be made. In addition, using another technology, my department is rolling out the installation of meters for the remote measuring of utility usage, that is for both water and electricity, in all its provincially owned buildings, so that by the end of the current calendar year, water and electricity usage can be measured in real time and monitored far more effectively than is currently the case. That is, by means of relying on municipal accounts, unexplained high usage, such as caused by leakages, can be identified immediately and the problem investigated and addressed. And portion C of the question, what measures have been put in place to limit leakages? As the custodian of provincial properties, the Department of Transport and Public Works has since 2011-12 implemented initiatives measuring and monitoring the consumption, cost and behavior of users in specific leased and owned accommodation exceeding 1,000 square meters. It was found in 2015-16 that the usage in respect of the buildings measured and monitored by Department of Transport and Public Works in the Property Efficiency Report was lower than the benchmark averages across South African corporate offices. The Property Efficiency Report measures, amongst other things, water consumption per square meter, per person, and per portfolio. This is within the CBD and outside the CBD against industry benchmarks. Although this initiative focuses on water savings and not leakage management per se, it has led to the identification and correction of leakages, as well as to the identification of the new technology referred to above. All existing taps in all bathrooms in provincial buildings are being fitted with flow restrictors, which limit significantly water leakage and wastage. Internal communication campaigns are regularly run across the Western Cape government departments, highlighting the importance of reporting leaks effectively so that they can be dealt with urgently. It is broadly accepted that water conservation measures save more water than the fixing of leaks on their own. I'm happy to supply the honourable member with a full list of the water conservation measures implemented across the Western Cape government.
Honourable Uys.
Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I'm very concerned. Honourable Grant started off and say, we don't know because it's in the hands of Department of Health and Education. I think I must just ask the question very simple. What is the water consumption and what is your target to reduce the water consumption? Because that is the norm that you put to all in industry. And they're all working towards 20% of a reduction in water consumption. What is the water consumption now of provincial government and what is the aim of the consumption of water? And it seems like you're far behind private sector in this province and not showing leadership.
Deputy Speaker, with respect to the honourable member, I said exactly the contrary. Most of our figures that we have at our disposal, it is lower than the private sector. I'm happy to do so, but that's a new question and I can give it to you. It's no problem.
Honourable Uys, your second question.
Asked it. You know you were coming here to answer the question. Why don't you give us the figures?
Uys, get to the question.
It's easy. Honourable Deputy Speaker, now you say you respond to burst pipes. Now what do? Do you have an emergency unit? You have a couple of plumbers to do that? What is your response and how quickly do you respond to it?
Deputy Speaker, I'll give the Honourable Ace a copy of my reply because if you'd listened properly,
I did.
I said we are measuring the flow of both water and electricity in real time on handheld devices. So the answer is instantaneous.
Honourable Ace.
Honourable Grant, can you take out one of that handheld devices and tell us what's happening in this building now? You can't. And that's the problem. But let me ask you this. What is your decision around swimming pools in the Western Cape belonging to and under the support of the provincial government of the Western Cape? Is it open? Is it closed as it's supposed to be? What's happening? No, don't look around. It's an easy question.
Honourable Minister, you may
That's what
respond. Order.
We
Order.
as citizens must answer that. You must answer it too. Oh, thank you. I like that.
Order. Minister Grant, you may. Order.
I like that.
Deputy Speaker, he threw me in the deep end with a drip.
Not even a drip, a snorkel maybe.
That's what you are, whether you like it or not. Which swimming pool is the Honourable Ace referring to, Deputy Speaker?
All right, you have last opportunity now.
If you don't know which swimming pools falls under your department, that's a problem. But let me ask a very simple question. What is the percentage of water losses of the provincial government in the Western Cape? The percent, because everybody can tell you that. The city of Cape Town can tell you July 2017, 17.7%. Now you tell us, what is the water loss of your services that you render? Tell us that.
Mr. Grant, you may answer.
Deputy Speaker, this is a different question, but let me say there is not one answer which suits all buildings. But let me tell you what we are doing in our own building in 9 Dorp Street, for example, where what we're trying to do is to take the entire building, except for potable water, and that is the air conditioning systems as well as the toilets, taking it completely off-grid by recycling the underground water. So these are other questions which the Honourable Ace is dreaming up, which he doesn't put on the order paper, because if he had to specify all these additional questions, I would gladly have given him the answer. But Deputy Speaker, these are new questions.
Order. We move on. Order. We've reached the end of questions. We now move on to statements by members. I first see the DA, Honourable Botha.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. September is the month where communities across the world commemorate the deaf as part of International Month for Deaf People. This vital month forms part of the first World Congress of the World Federation of the Deaf, which took place in September 2015. Deputy Speaker, it is important that we continue to create awareness of the various challenges that our fellow citizens who are deaf are facing, so that whatever difficulties they might have can be addressed. This is where I'd like to commend the various schools, institutions, and organizations across the country that serves as champions for their rights. I further applaud them for ensuring that the challenges and needs of the deaf is being addressed. It is estimated that there are over 600,000 deaf people in our country, with more than 1.4 million suffering from hearing loss. It is, however, concerning that only 1 in 2 worldwide are educated in sign language. Deputy Speaker, as members of this House, we have to make a concerted effort to at least attempt to learn how to sign. Furthermore, we have to rally behind the deaf in their quest of making sign language the 12th official language in South Africa. I was extremely humbled when I recently read a story in the media about 40-year-old Baronisa Michaels from Worcester, who, even though deaf for most of her life, is a successful entrepreneur designing and selling wall clocks. Finally, when we recognize the positive contribution that the deaf is making to our society, we are celebrating them. I thank you.
The Honourable Mugaka, the ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. There is an empty bench of the absent Honourable Premier Lenzile in this legislature. She is traveling all around the world in her last remaining months as a premier. On Twitter, she enjoys healthy food, poses with bottles of wine, and is driven in a flag-decorated car compliments of the taxpayer, while her province faces disasters like drought together with water shortages, devastating fires, and the killing of innocent people. It seems like she is more taken up with the work of Liberals International than the Cape Poor. She even ignores her errand MECs like the Honorable Debbie Sheffer's insulting people. Under the Premier's leadership, confidential cabinet minutes are leaked, abused for narrow party political gains, like yesterday in Scopa when the Honorable Dennis Joseph supposedly quoted from it. Even here, she's not defended by her caucus anymore. Just one lady tries to protect her, the Honorable Mike Wally, who is behaving like an old apartheid military general. His role in this democratic parliament is to intimidate opponents, both inside the DA and in this parliament, in the opposition. He uses any opportunity to close any democratic space to force everybody who happen to be against or criticizing. The Honorable regularly jumps up to attempt and shield her. He will soon come again with another trick to cover for her. The Honorable Wiley will try repeatedly, but he will not succeed as he only exposes his premier to more public gratitude.
Member, your time has expired.
My last sentence. It is disgraceful that at this moment in our democratic position, we still have a person like Honorable Wali who does not even acknowledge any relationship between
Your
both
member,
of
your time
them.
has expired. Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I just would like to say a point of order that the member that have spoken now is misleading the House. It's incorrect and it's untruth that he spoke. It was a memorandum to Cabinet and it was an unclassified document.
Order, member. Yes, that is not a point of order, but you've made your point, but that's the end of the story. That's not a point of order. I see then the DA.
No,
Is it a point of order?
Yes.
I'm sorry, yes, I'm listening. Sorry.
Deputy Speaker, is it right for the Honorable Joseph to refer to the Leader of Opposition that he is lying? He's speaking untruth.
I did not hear that. He used the word untruth, which is parliamentary, that is quite normal, quite acceptable. We move to the DA now. I see the Honourable Inana.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the Metro Rail continues to fail the people of the Western Cape, and this is a very serious concern that has been highlighted every day by many people, commuters, and the working place where the people are supposed to be. It has come to the point where practically every day, approximately 700,000 people who rely on Metro Rail to provide good services are stranded, frustrated, and confused. Deputy Speaker, this entire year, PRASA have been talking about working towards stabilizing and restoring the Metro Rail service. Yet, just over the past 2 weeks, even our staff members who rely on the services have highlighted that trains have in fact become more unreliable over the past year and are posing a threat to their workplace, their safety, and are breaking the relationship with their families. Speaker, we cannot expect anything less from the service that primarily relies on railway infrastructure that is over 3 decades old. Furthermore, Metro Rail requires at least 8 train sets to run somewhat efficiently. That is hoping that many of the other problems with the service are not going to pop up. At this particular point, PRASA only has 60 working train sets. This indicates, therefore, that Metro Rail only has 75% of the trains needed to run at a minimum rate of efficiency. Deputy Speaker, the challenges in the Greater Cape Town metropolitan area in relation to public transport, especially commuter rail, remain a considerable concern to the DA-led Western Cape government. While commuter rail falls within the national mandate
of the National Department of Transport and PRASA Railway Agency, I, however, pleased to get a notification and a consolidation of the fact that the Department of Transport and Public Works and City of Cape Town
Order.
continue to try to get
Just
measures.
finish
to
off, your
make to
time has
improve-
expired, your last sentence.
They continue to get management structures in this organization to make the process of commuting the pulpul safely and in time to become a reliable thing as it was.
Thank you, your time has now really expired. I again see the DA in the absence of one of the smaller parties. Honourable Wenger.
Honourable Speaker, we are on the verge of a technological revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, work and relate to one another. The rapid expansion of technology and high levels of innovation means we're more connected than ever before. This has brought increased pressure for us to equip and prepare for the fourth industrial revolution. In its scale, scope and complexity, the fourth industrial revolution will be disruptive, and while we do not yet fully know its implications, we do need to prepare for it. Our response must be integrated and comprehensive to ensure that as we move into this new revolution, we improve equality and do everything that we can to bring all citizens into the technological age, lest we further entrench inequality. To do this, we need a whole-of-society approach. The Western Cape government has adopted initiatives that fuse technology and human capital to attempt to solve a range of societal, safety and business problems. For example, since the DA took over government in this province, we understood the importance of using technology to promote inclusivity. That's why we aim to get all our citizens connected online and to the world. To date, over 1,000 sites have been completed, consisting of either wireless or fiber optic cable. Broadband services have been activated at over 900 of these sites, and more than 600 schools across both rural and urban areas in our province have been connected, as well as 90 libraries and 160 corporate sites. In addition, to prepare our youth and teachers through e-learning programs to provide a competitive and quality education similar to many of the leading economies in the world. At government internet hubs in rural areas and youth cafes across the province, online tools and resources help the people of our province, and in particular the youth, to be part of the future and to integrate them into a technology-driven future where the youth can participate in the economy, have choices, and not be captured by poverty or violence. Because, Deputy Speaker, we have to prepare for tomorrow, today.
Thank you. I see the ANC. Honourable Janki.
The state of affairs in Mossel Bay reveals just how bad the DA is for local government. Mossel Bay Chief Financial Officer Marius Buerta was eventually fired after his jail sentence of 5 years for contravening of the Municipal Finance Management Act, including fraud and money laundering. Now listen to this. The DA deployed Buerta against warnings. And after he was found guilty, the DA continued to protect him. Municipal Manager Thais Gilliomie is also redeployed to Mossel Bay after he left the Provincial Liquor Authority as CEO with 2 forensic reports of irregular expenditure presently at Scopa. Gilliomie succeeded Dr. Michel Gratz, who also left under a cloud. As if that is not enough, the DA Ward 102 councillor in Cape Town's northern suburbs of Brackenfell and Kraaifontein, Karen Brainerd, resigned after 11 years, ahead of the DA internal factional fight to find new metro and provincial leaders. And another councillor jumps the DA ship. Brainerd cites the dictatorial and bully management style of former provincial leader Patricia de Lille, who's Cape Town mayor, who ignores her caucus and middle-class areas that do not get value for their tax money as roads are not maintained. Shame. Scande on the messing up of local government on you, DA.
DA. Honourable Max.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, as we are a week ago from Heritage Day, I want to encourage this entire House to make the heritage the building block to improve South Africa and thus move us forward. We can do this because we are truly blessed as a nation to have a multitude of cultures and traditions in our country. An effort is, however, needed across all sectors of society, including government and the various political parties we have. We should see this as an opportunity in the Western Cape to demonstrate that although we have different cultures and traditions, although we are from different political parties, together we can and want to drive our province and country forward. Speaker, we should not just see the day as another opportunity to braai, but utilize it to engage each other about how we can optimally use our heritage, our history to propel us forward, so that we can reach heights that might never before have been possible. As a province and a country, we have come a long way, but I'm of the view that there's more on the horizon. Our forefathers laid the foundation by recognizing and respecting each other's heritage. Let us use it now as a building block and move South Africa forward.
Thank you. Order, the ANC. The Honourable Olivier.
Deputy Speaker, in welcoming the statement by Honourable Max, teachers and workers, parents and learners in various areas of the province daily duck and dive to dodge bullets in real life war zones to get to school and back to their homes. The crisis in the Western Cape education escalates as almost nothing is done by the province to alleviate their life-threatening situation except to complain. Altogether, 13 schools in Hanover Park and Lansdowne recently thanked national government for engaging with their communities to try and find lasting solutions to these problems. Amongst the problems are learners involved in gangs, abuse substances, bullying, and aggression that adds to instability. The high-risk schools say learning under these circumstances is almost impossible. Schools cannot be used after hours. The communities are hostages in their own homes as violence and deaths cries out for action and attention. Fear and uncertainty is now part of the dangerous lives people lead. Their constitutional rights of these people are denied unfairly. Communities ask that programs should aid them, community workers trained to assist them in the absence of Bambanani workers, which the DA government dissolved, that the bullet-reflective fences be erected next to measures like CCTV cameras. When will the DA government take serious the lives of our people in poor communities to really help them out of this disaster?
The DA, Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. A decision by the United Kingdom Public Relations and Communications Association to expel the controversial Gupta link agency Bell Pottinger is a victory for the people of South Africa against racially divided tactics of the ANC to deliberately divide and harm our society. This outcome proves that President Jacob Zuma and the Gupta family have done our country a shameful and unethical attempt to exploit racism and racial tension in South Africa. Die samenstelling van so 'n veldtog was doelbewus beplan om rasisme en ook die wonde van die verlede wat ons besig om te heel in Suid-Afrika weer oop te maak. Dit is politieke desperasie van 'n korrupte en onbevoegde regering wat deur die Guptas gebruik was en Bell Pottinger wat gebruik was. Dit is 'n manipulering van die demokratiese prosesse en 'n korrup ANC regering wat in mag wil bly. The DA has challenged the shameful and unethical act by reporting Bell Pottinger to the industry of the governing board, and this agency was expelled as a sign that the ANC and the Gupta family were corrupt. They were dividing the voters on racial lines. The fall of Bell Pottinger is a victory for truth and democracy and the people of our South Africa. This is also a victory for the people against the ANC and against the ANC government, who has become a corrupt government. I thank you.
Order. That ends the statements. We move on to motions. Motions printed on the order paper, and I'm trying to find the Chief Whip to move this motion. Honourable, before I see the Chief Whip, I will allow parties who want to take the opportunity 3 minutes to speak on the motion.
Just a point of order, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Honourable.
May I address you on that, please? Honourable Deputy Speaker, this motion, and if you just bear with me, and it's important what I'm going to say, this motion with notice was submitted by Honourable Wiley on the 15th of June this year. Consequently, it was with notice, so it was below the line, if I may say that. Now that motion was put on the order paper. And when you put a motion on the order paper, Honourable Deputy Speaker, that motion must be the same motion as you put forward on the date. And the date was the 15th of June 2017. And the problem that we have, Honourable Deputy Speaker, is this motion now printed, I see here on the order paper, is not the same motion as was submitted on the 15th of June by the Honourable Chief Whip at that time. And therefore I have a major problem of this motion serving here today, because we can't amend a motion before coming to this House for consideration. And therefore I would ask that we not consider this motion, it get rectified if it's still valid, and replaced on the order paper. I'm very concerned, and I would like to ask the question, and I would like to believe it was not done deliberately.
Maybe the Chief Whip of the ANC can just assist us to say in which respects the motion differ. I'm just aware of the numbering. Is there anything else in it?
Substantially sections left out here. But you know, in terms of the separation of power, I don't want to do the job of the officials.
Yes, I'm not aware that the motion is different. If that is the case, then certainly the Chief Whip has a point. Honourable Chief Whip?
Thank you very much. I'm surprised that the Chief Whip is complaining this way, because without any substance, because I would love to know in what way it's changed. I would ask the table in what way, if at any it has changed, because I actually have an amendment here, which I will distribute to the House at the appropriate time. So I'd love to know what exactly, where the difference lies.
Can I ask the Chief Whip, Honourable Ace, just to give an indication in what respects this motion differs from the one that was originally moved?
Honourable Deputy Speaker, would you agree if the motion that's now on the table is not similar to the motion that was submitted on the 15th of June, that this motion can't proceed?
I cannot agree without knowing exactly what we're talking about. The numbering is one, that's a technical change to the motion. There's nothing substantive to that. What else what other changes are there?
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I refer you to order paper 22, order paper of the 22nd of June, 2017. And that's the order paper where the motion was printed in. That was also my notes in terms of the order, in terms of the motion, and that's the correct motion, I believe. That was tabled, and that's the motion. What's happening here, Honourable Deputy Speaker, under motion 20, there's 4 sections, and I hear what you say about numbering number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I have no problem adding numbers to it, because it just makes it much better to engage with. But, Honourable Deputy Speaker, what was deleted and what was not in this motion that we see today is the one that I'm going to read to you. And I'm going to read from this blue one, and it's not my blue one. And that is, and that the committee consists of 4 members of the DA, 2 members of the ANC, and 1 member of the ACDP. And that was the motion, Honourable Deputy Speaker. And it's not here, and I'm very, very concerned, and I would like you to not consider this motion today.
Yes, I'm afraid the Honourable Chief Whip is correct. I'm sitting with the minutes of the House in front of me on page 25. of 22 June, it is correct that there was a resolution taken on the composition of this committee as well. Or that was the way it was moved, and is not on the order paper now. Chief Whip, the way out of this one is to not move the motion and move it at the next meeting in the correct form, or you can try and move an amendment to the motion as it stands. But I'm uncomfortable by the fact that the motion is not in the same format as previously.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. I would ask, though, that the papers section of Parliament explain to us at a later stage how this came about, because all that we asked was that the motion that was below the line be taken above the line. So I'd like to know how that happened, but I take it in good faith what my honourable colleague on the other side has said, and we accept and we'll stand down until the next time.
Yes, thank you. I think that is the way to go forward. I'm not aware of any motives about this. It was simply a technical omission, but we will correct it next time. We then move on to the other motions. We move to motions. Are there any motions where notice is given? Honourable Magaka?
Motion with notice that the House debates the unbecoming behavior of the Honourable Premier Zille in the House, which has led to her being booted out of the House in 2 consecutive sittings for undermining the authority of the Speaker and disregarding House rules by refusing to withdraw unparliamentary comments. Thank you.
Notice taken. Any further? Honourable Joseph?
Yeah. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that the House debate the mandate and sustainability of district municipalities.
Notice taken. Honourable Lekker?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That the House debates the efficiency and effectiveness of the Western Cape Police Ombudsman.
Notice is taken. Honourable Inana?
Thank you, Deputy Chief Whip. Motion with notice that the House debates the progress in the allocation of housing opportunities in the Western Cape, so I move.
Thank you. Notice taken. Honourable Diana?
Motion with notice that the House debates the impact of the influx of international tourists will have on our water shortages in the province and mitigating strategies adopted by the provincial government. I so move.
Notice is taken of that one. Honourable Kivedu?
Deputy Speaker, I move with notice that the House debates the unscrupulous, criminal and barbaric actions of violence, protest, destruction, looting and anarchy on our campuses, state buildings, residential areas and open spaces. I so move.
Notice taken. Are there any further? For the last time, Honourable Joseph.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move that the House debate urban and rural development relating to budget allocation. Thank you.
Notice is taken of that one. Any further? Can we then move on to the next section? Are there any motions without notice? Honourable Magaka.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move without notice that the House knows that Tuesday marked 40 years since the leader of the Black Consciousness Movement, Stephen Bantu Biko, was killed while in police custody in 1977. Knows further that Biko was one of the sharpest thinkers of his generation. He was a philosopher, an activist, and an organic intellectual whose ideas, like the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor, is the mind of the oppressed, close quote, still influence and inspire young people today. Acknowledges Nelson Mandela's charge that they had to kill him to prolong the life of apartheid. Remembers him and conveys condolences to his family and friends.
Any objection to the motion be moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Wenger?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I move that move without notice that the House condemns the Department
Order.
of Agriculture.
Just start again, Honourable Wenger. I couldn't hear you. Just order.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that the House condemns the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries for its handling of the fishing quotas in the Western Cape, which is resulting in the marginalisation of historic fishing communities such as Hungberg, and requests the national government to revise the quotas and allocations.
Any objection to the motion being moved? Is there an objection? Motion will be printed on the order paper. Honourable Kivedu.
Honourable Speaker, I move motion without notice. I move that the House expresses its deepest condolences to the bereaved family, loved ones, friends and school community of Hyde Park Primary in Parkwood Estate. The 7-year-old Ezra Daniels, a learner, had been fatally wounded in gang crossfire and was laid to rest on 9th September 2017. May his dear soul rest in peace. I so move.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Gillian.
Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that the House notes that the increase in attacks on paramedics has led to the provincial government increasing so-called red zones from 12 to 16, which means that the lives of people endangered as a result of paramedics taking longer to arrive are also increasing. Condemns the attacks on emergency personnel and calls on communities to protect emergency workers.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honourable Max.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, that this House notes and congratulates College of Cape Town student Aviwe Mvoko, who was crowned as the best male speaker during the recent National Student Debate Competition that was held in his London Eastern Cape. I so move.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Simmers first.
Speaker, dat die huis Maartenburg, adjudant-offisier van George, gelukwens op 'n welverdiende derde plek tydens 'n toekenningsgeleentheid van die nasionale konferensie van die gesinsgeweld, kinderbeskerming en seksuele misdrywe eenheid. 'n Eer wat nie sommer enigiemand toekom nie. Ek plaas dit op die tafel aan.
Geen beswaar teen die voorstel sonder kennis. Geen beswaar teen die voorstel self. Goedgekeur. Agbare lekker.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That the House notes with concern that the killing of women and children continues unabated in the province as a result of Honourable Premier Zile's refusal to take action as requested by the citizens. Notes further that more women were killed in recent weeks. Lorena Rake, 26, from Tidorans, died after she was allegedly beaten with a shovel by a boyfriend. Zanele Sandlana, 21, whose body was dumped in an open field in TR section Lingeletu last week. She was found with a bottle stuffed in her mouth. Shannon Moses, who was strangled to death by a boyfriend in Haynes Park, and Asive Sizani, 19, who was found strangled to death at a boyfriend's house in Delft on Sunday morning. Condemns the senseless killing of women in the province, welcomes the arrest of killers in all the above cases, and conveys our condolences to the families. I thank you.
Any objections to the motion being moved? Is there an objection? There's an objection. It will be printed. Honourable Williefield first. Order.
Deputy Speaker, I move that this House note and condemns incident of abuse of learners by teachers at the Western Cape School after a grade 1 learner of Grevenor Primary in Atlantis was stripped naked in the class in front of her classmates, and another grade 9 learner at another school was called a mahosha, which is a whore, by her teacher, and calls for speedy investigation and disciplinary action against these teachers. I so move.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Kivedu.
Baie dankie, agbare adjunct speaker. 'n Mosie sonder kennisgewing. Ek stel voor dat die huis sy opregte gelukwense uitspreek teenoor ons kollega en parlementêre diensbeampte, meneer Charles Berda, wie onlangs 31 jaar ononderbroke diensjare in die staat en wetgewende sektor asook sy 50ste verjaardag op 8 September 2017 gevier het. Ek stel so voor.
Geen beswaar teen daai voorstel. Goedgekeur. Honourable Diana.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That the House notes that day 0, when the province's dams run dry, could arrive in December. Notes further that the province is in this predicament as a result of failures by the DA-led municipalities and provincial government to plan for and better manage daily water consumption, and allowing agriculture, businesses and construction to waste water while the poor are forced to abide by water limits, and calls on the National Department of Water and Sanitation to intervene. I so move.
There is an objection to that. It will be printed in the order paper. Are there any further? Honourable Gillian.
Deputy Speaker, please protect me from MEC.
I think you must get protection from your member next to you, Honourable
Yes,
Diana.
I am going to her, but that one, that side.
Please continue.
Wie maak hier 'n snotklap?
Order. Order, order.
Excuse me.
Order, Honourable Chief Whip. I think you must temper that word.
I withdraw that.
Thank you. Honourable Gillian, you may now proceed.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. A motion without notice. I move that the House notes the devastating effects the outbreak of avian flu has on businesses and the economy. Notes further that the economy lost more than 50 million rand, and some businesses like the duck farm in Joostenbergvlakte are forced to close down. Calls on relevant authorities to put measures in place to contain this disease that has the potential to also affect the human population, and calls for an urgent intervention to prevent the disease from affecting people. I so move.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Motion is agreed to. Honourable Lekker first, and then I'll come back to Honourable Max.
That the House welcomes the High Court judgment to dismiss an application by the DA-led Cape Town to evict 60,000 people in Marikana informal settlement in Philippi. Notes further the city is ordered to enter into negotiations with the owners to purchase the land, and calls on the provincial government to ensure that the city respects and abides by the decisions of the court by immediately initiating a process to implement the ruling.
Any objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Max.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. That this House notes and congratulates South African tennis star Kevin Anderson for reaching the final of the 2017 US Open. Anderson became the first South African to reach a Grand Slam singles final since Kevin Curran reached the Australian Open final in 1984. I so move.
I take it there's no objection to the motion being moved without notice, nor against the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Magaka.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Moving without notice that the House knows that Premier Helen Zille's latest trip to Thailand and Vietnam with 3 other government officials came at a cost of 540,000, condemned the waste of taxpayers' money on international journeys that have no economic benefit for the poor of this province, and calls on the Premier to give a detailed breakdown of what this money was spent for. Thank you.
Is there any objection to the motion being moved? There is an objection. Will be printed in order paper. Honourable Olivier first.
Deputy Speaker, I move that this House notes and commends the KZN Education Department for its swift action to suspend 7 teachers this week for abusing learners, and calls on the Western Cape Education Department to take firm stance against teachers who are caught abusing learners, including the Steenberg High teacher who was caught giving corporal punishment to a learner, and the teacher from Tandokulu High School who is accused of sexual misconduct, which led to the learners boycotting class on Friday last week. I so move.
Any objection to that motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Kivedu.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Motion without notice. I move that this House congratulates Emmanuel Atipila Mtumbutu, a student at the College of Cape Town in Crawford, who is selected to represent South Africa in the International Cup of the Australian Football League, that is Aussie rules, as they call it, in Melbourne, Australia. We wish him well with this fine achievement. I so move.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Gopi first, and then I'll come back to Honourable Lekker after that.
Deputy Speaker, motion without notice that the House notes that discrimination towards patients in the psychiatric hospitals across the province notes that the demand that the signage board reading Isibhedlela sabagula ngengqondo translated means hospital for people who are sick in the brain be immediately changed as it disrespects the patients. I so move.
Any objection to that motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Lekker.
That the House notes the Khayelitsha rapist Sikangele Mki, who pleaded guilty to 30 counts of rape, 27 counts of kidnapping, 4 counts of serious assault, was today sentenced in the Western Cape High Court to 15 life terms and 120 years in prison, welcomes this judgment and applauds Judge P.L. Goliath for this judgment. I thank you.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. It's agreed to. Honourable Kivido.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Motion without notice. I move that the House expresses its deepest condolences to the bereaved family, loved ones, friends, and the school community of Kleinberg Primary in Ocean View. The 9-year-old learner Akil David had been fatally wounded in gang crossfire and was laid to rest on 9 September 2017. May his dear soul rest in peace. I so move.
No objection to the motion being moved without notice. No objection to the motion itself. Agreed to. Honourable Lekker.
That the House notes that there are more CCTV cameras on the ground floor and entrances of this very building that houses the Honourable Premier Zille than in the whole of Khayelitsha, where most of the 60 crime-fighting cameras do not even work.
Is there an objection to the motion being moved without notice? No objection to the motion. No objection to the motion without notice. Agreed to. Are there any further? We've come to the end of that. Order. That concludes motions without notice. Before we adjourn, can I just remind members that the Budget Committee will sit immediately after the adjournment. That then brings us to the end of the business for the day. The House is adjourned.